Form blazing sword! Hey kids, I'm Voltron. If you watched me in the 80s, you thought I was a wholesome cartoon. I go around chopping up robots. Nobody ever died. But if you watched Go Lion, the show I'm based on, it's a freaking genocide. Kill, 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 kill. And Nanny, well, Nanny didn't just fall sick and disappear in the show. Nanny took 2 to the chest. Oh, spoilers! Of course I have a Voltron toy. But that really doesn't surprise anyone now, does it? I'll be right back.
Form blazing sword!
Voltron Legendary Defender is in its 3rd season, and last week I promised you a review after I watched it on Netflix. I should probably talk about the fact that it's a day later than I usually drop this video. I don't know, I was just feeling out of the weather. I was feeling under the weather, out of sorts, last couple of days. I didn't feel video-y. So I went ahead and I took the day and I binge watched a little TV and I got myself right as rain to talk to you today about Voltron Season 3 and kind of what I thought about it. Last week I said it was going to be just a review, and I think I lied. I think I always knew I was going to do a spoiler review, so like, spoilers. Spoilers for a long time. Because I just want to talk about the show. And I don't want to do it gingerly, like going, well, I don't want to give away too much, or whatever. I just basically want to say, whatever comes to my mouth is probably going to be a spoiler. But it's like only 7 episodes. That's like 3 hours of your time, you know. Just you know, you don't need sleep. You can just go ahead and watch. So I think that one of the things that Season 3 did for me was really transmit, like, that they had an arching, controlling thesis or idea for the season. One thing really stood out to me as we walked through these shows, and I think I'm going to kind of like say what that I think that arc is, and then we can take a look episode by episode how they develop it. It really looks like Season 3 was about dark parallels, I think is what we're talking about here. We have several things that happen during the series that demonstrate how an idea looks, both through like the view of our protagonists, but then if you just flip one switch, if you just do one thing differently, how that viewpoint actually is dark, borderline, if not completely evil. And I think that we have a lot of that happening in this series this season. So, in the show, it seems like we have like 3 arcs that exemplify this idea that Season 3 feels like it's about looking at this idea of, like, what is it that people in power envision is good for the people who are not in power? We look to, like, the Paladins of Voltron and Allure as the heroes, but are they really the heroes? What is it that they are trying to do? How is it that they're doing it? They're clearly the people with the most power. And how do people look up to them? How do you use that power? It's a lot deeper than just like, oh, hey, fun kids show. Because really, just take a step back for a second. Allura and the 5 pilots are in control of the galaxy's most powerful weapon. Just take a moment and ask yourself, Who are these people? How are they qualified? Oh, the Lions chose them. Well, the Lions chose Zarkon too. So these, this isn't necessarily something that's like 100% foolproof. Oh, maybe Zarkon was good at the beginning, but he still had aspirations for power. And those aspirations for power lead us to, the whole Galra Empire. But, how different, and I think that's the first thing that we're trying to see here is the Galra Empire at the beginning of the season is starting to collapse. Zarkon's gone. Lotor hasn't shown back up again. And the Allura and company are starting to build alliances with the rebelling star systems. So here's our first dark parallel of the series. What is it that Lotor does when he first comes back? Now, granted he has his own motives, and granted he is going to still do things in a very Galra way, but at least on the surface, when he's first winning the Galra over and then going system by system, he's promising basically the same things that Team Voltron are promising. Join with us, and you will be peace. You will experience peace and security. Now, here's where power matters, right? This whole episode is about we can't do it without Voltron. That's a dangerous psychological position to be in. To be dependent upon the people who are wielding the tremendous amount of power. We have to make certain that Team Voltron is really good and oriented in a justice fashion in order to believe that what they will do is just and right. And if what they do isn't just and right, then these people have put their faith not in themselves, which is part of the subplot of this episode. Keith at the dinner is like, there is no Black Lion, there is no Voltron, learn to fight for yourselves. And I think that's a much stronger message than maybe the episode implied, in the sense that it's always about the Legend of Voltron, the Legend of Voltron, the Legend of Voltron will save us. Well, I don't think it's necessarily Voltron's job to do all the saving all the time. Why is it that individual star systems can't do their part to help maintain their safety? Why is it that they can't just say, we'll join you? They're all like, can we see Voltron? Trust but verify. Can we see Voltron? Right? They're not going to make that step for themselves. They're not going to make that step for their kids. They're not going to make their step to join the Alliance for any kind of noble ideal. They want to make certain that they've got the biggest big brother in their corner. So I don't even find these individual star systems motives to be motives I could get behind. So what Allura is trying to build and what Lotor is trying to build are the same things. Join us, we'll keep you peaceful, we'll keep you safe. And in the exposition of the episode, we even learn that Lotor is doing things in a very un-Galra way. He wants systems to ally with him out of almost a mutual self-respect, rather than just outright, fear. And so that creates an interesting tension that we'll see over the course of the season, and how the resurrection of Zarkon at the end of the season might be interesting to watch play out. How will Zarkon and Lotor figure things out? So that's that first arc in the series that I'm interested in following, was the parallel between Lotor and Allura, and how they were basically team building, and how it doesn't take much for Allura to cross over into what Lotor is trying to do. After all, she's got Voltron. It'll be very easy to use Voltron as more like a bully than a peaceful guardian guarantee sort of thing. Just on a side note, if you've watched Voltron, the original Voltron, you were curious, like I was, as to what extent the new Paladin alignment was going to work out. Was Keith indeed going to be Black Lion, Lance to Red, Allura to Blue? And that all played out. pretty much on point. And I guess I want to take a moment to go on a tangent. Surprise me on a tangent. I think what the Voltron reboot, and I'll even say this about Yamato, the Yamato reboot that has been going on for the last 5 years now. They both have done, I think, this reboot in a very smart way. They've maintained an awful lot of what was old in the new. I wish the Voltron theme would have found a way into the show a little bit more. If not, I don't think I've heard it at all, actually. It would have been nice to have found that music in there. I guess something prevented them from doing it. Maybe they just thought it was too tacky. I don't know. Anyway, I really appreciate, like, they're doing enough following the basic storyline that works. They've got their own twists, right? There are a lot of things going on in the show now that weren't in the original show, and just like Yamato, they kept the same basic storyline, but then they tweaked enough just to keep things fresh and new. And I like that for a couple reasons. Number one, it does successfully bank on nostalgia to a certain extent, but it also gives me something new to enjoy. But if you've got kids like me and they haven't watched the originals, my kids of course have watched the originals. That should come as no surprise. But if you've got kids who haven't watched the original, they can watch this, and in a way they are getting the original. They are getting to a certain extent what watching the original Star Blazers or what watching the original Voltron was like. And so I think that they've done a good job of balancing nostalgia and original storyline, but enough new, fresh stuff to make it interesting for somebody like me who's seen Voltron and Go Lion a number of times. So the second episode has a lot of like Keith becoming the leader sort of stuff. I mean, we get everybody into the spots where they're supposed to be as far as the lions are concerned, but the second episode really is an awful lot about like growing Keith as as the leader, the reluctant leader. I don't want to do this, he says, and he's got to figure out. He's got to do like a lot of things simultaneously. Number one, they've got to learn this new threat about Lotor. Number two, he's got to learn how to lead. Number three, as is pointed out in the show, 3 of the 5 paladins are relearning or learning, depending on who you are, learning how to handle their new lions. And that should be a red flag. Most leaders would probably say, all right, team, time for the Rocky training montage, and everybody learns how to fly their lions. But instead, Keith is like, this is how I lead, rah, full speed ahead. And he will learn over the course of the season that single-mindedness, that drive, that once you get your teeth into something you never let go, that's something that he has to unlearn. And we'll see over the course of the season how that part of him starts to mature. I think one of my favorite parts of the first half of this season is Allura's line when they finally form Voltron. Because it's episode 3, so we're about halfway through the season, and that's like that's their first major test on this new, we're developing new hero cycle. They form Voltron and Allura screams out, "Hunk, I'm a leg!" Which is like, I guess how anyone would feel if they were in any part of Voltron. I think it's funny that Hunk wanted to be the head, but in the Yellow Lion, but he has to be a leg, and he's very excited that Allura's excited to be a leg as well. Allura has to learn, like Keith. I think this was another one of those parallels I meant to talk about. Allura is a top-down autocrat, and Keith is this loner, and they've both had to make adjustments. Voltron has forced them to make adjustments. Keith has to now stop being a loner and become a team leader with team focus. Allura has to come down off of her I'm in command and control to be a team member and to actually take orders from not only Keith, but also take orders from the lion, because you're not always giving orders to the lion. Sometimes the lion is telling you, actually a lot of the time, the lion is telling you what to do. So these two characters make interesting, because like All Lance has to do is learn how to fly the red line faster than he's used to in the blue line. Pidge and Hunk are just kind of like still doing their thing. And so these two characters, so Allura and Keith, they're on that very interesting, I have to redefine myself portion of the program. Becoming a leader and team-oriented, becoming team-oriented and listening to a leader. So those are interesting ways that they have made similar, voyages of discovery for their characters. But I think we would all, if we were in the leg of Voltron, even though we were in the leg of Voltron and that wouldn't sound too particularly exciting, I think we'd all be like, I'm a leg! I'm a leg! How awesome is Lotor's fighter, by the way? It's a pretty awesome fighter. The next interesting arc that examines this season's controlling idea of how your idea with one tweak can go in a very, very bad or dark way comes with episode 4, Hole in the Sky. It's super clear and obvious. And if you were just watching this episode, if you were watching this episode and not thinking back to the Lotor when we first see him explaining how he's going to take systems and how he sounds very much like Allura, then if we weren't paying attention to that, then we might lose the fact that this is a motif. This is another motif. In this case, in the alternate universe, the Altean Empire, peace and harmony and tranquility in a galaxy, but it comes at a cost. In the Galra Empire, the cost is obvious. It is like self-evident. You see the oppression on the marks are made on the planets and on the people themselves. And it takes a little while to see those marks because they're hidden, out of sight, they're subtle, but those marks are still there, okay? I don't remember what they called it in the episode. I probably should have looked it up. The little aggro preventer that's on the backs of the heads of the more aggressive species. They've basically turned them, well, they're not even slaves, because slaves complain all the time, right? They're automatons. They do what they're told. And that's a dangerous thing, because who gets to make, this is the danger of the Altean Empire in this alternate galaxy. Who gets to make the decision about who gets the little brain implants and who doesn't get the brain implants? What is aggressive, what's too aggressive? Think about how many people the Alteans must have killed spreading their peace and unity throughout the galaxy. Who's the big bad of the Altean Empire? You take Allura's idea of spreading peace and tranquility throughout the galaxy. They're doing it with the galaxy's most powerful weapon. In this Altean Empire, they're doing it through brain implant technology. You get the same result, don't you? Don't you get a galaxy that is under oppression? In the galaxy of our protagonists, the oppression is Voltron. Oh, we better behave or Voltron's going to come. No, we never hear that, we never say that, because we're inherently told through the story that these are the good guys. We learn, the very first episode of Season 1 tells us why they're the good guys. But nobody sees that except for us, the audience. The other aliens don't see that. They just have learned about the legend of Voltron. They don't know for sure. What's to keep the lions from coming down and raining death and destruction on your village if you don't behave? So in the Altean Empire of the alternate universe, they have their mind control thing, and we know it's about power, and we know they're addicted to the power because their inherent response to the, I'm going to call it Voltron Comet, is we will use this to bridge dimensions and go to other dimensions and spread our peace there too. They're not interested in harmony in their worlds and in their galaxies. They're interested in conquest. And again, if Voltron has the same powers, because he's made out of the same stuff, it's just one bad day at work from Voltron Defender of the Universe and Voltron going around from universe to universe, wagging his finger and saying, "You all better behave or I'll come and blazing sword your heads off." I know this is kind of a dark way of looking at our protagonists, but I genuinely believe this is part of what this it's a very short run of 7 episodes in this season, but I think they did a really good job of driving home this idea that what they're doing is just 1 degree different from what everybody else is doing, whether it's in their universe or in this Altean Empire universe. It's just 1 degree different. And if that degree changes, Voltron all of a sudden is, oh, you know what? He's still Voltron Defender of the Universe, and I'm just really glad that he hasn't come and torched our village today. Hopefully we'll still be in peace and prosperity. We hope. Oh, and by the way, Lotor gets the comet. So, I mean, they basically set us up for, you know, a Dark Voltron. That would kind of be cool. You know, Kit needed Car. Spock needed evil goatee Spock. So, you know, Voltron could use an evil Voltron. Will evil Voltron have a goatee? That would be cool. Episode 5 is really where most of my complaints spring up. This episode bothers me to no end. And I guess that's because I don't know what Lotor's ultimate plan is. I can't believe that that spaceship is the meteor. I mean, it is the comet already. They've already built it, and it was on a planet that with the teledub and what? How did they have the time? Why did they put it there? I mean, I understand, I guess, if it's a really elaborate plan to have Hagar take out, oh, what was his name? Thrack? Oh, shoot, I don't even remember his name. I should have probably looked it up. I guess I can understand it if it was his job to have Hagar take him out, but it doesn't make any sense. Is the comet that plane? That doesn't make any sense. Why would you do that? Make an evil Voltron. I just said 3 seconds ago, make an evil Voltron. So that part I didn't get. I did like how they got the 4 little girl generals to destroy the teledub. That was kind of cool. Because they kind of pulled a page out of Lotor's playbook from a few episodes earlier when he was toying with them on the gas planet. So that was cool. I like the way that they got themselves out of that situation, right? Keith coming up with a really cool plan on the spot. That kind of demonstrates Keith's development as a character. Okay, so I guess the other part of the episode that I'm really bothered by, of course, is Shiro showing up on a random ship above this ice world. What? How does that happen? Why is he on that planet? How is he allowed to escape? How does he find... That part really... I mean, I'm not bothered by the idea that the Black Line finds him and that he survives at the end. That part doesn't bother me. What bothers me is how he got to the Galra ship. I don't buy it. I have all sorts of other things going through my brain right now, but nothing that I can come up with works. At first I'm like, oh, he's just a clone. He's going to infiltrate those 2 rebels on that ice world. But then, would the Black Line have sensed the clone and saved the clone? I understand the Black Line not letting him fly the Black Line because the Black Line has now chosen Keith. But if he was a clone, the Black Line wouldn't have allowed him to fly him. But then the Black Line wouldn't have sensed him at all or would have ignored him because he knew it was a clone. Unless the Black Line doesn't recognize he was a clone. Didn't recognize he was a clone, but I'd already made a choice that Keith was going to be the pilot, so that's why he didn't let Shiro fly the Black Line. But if he's a clone, what's he doing on that ship? Why clone Shiro and then send him in to infiltrate the group? So it probably is Shiro. Which means the Black Line teleported him? But why did he teleport him? Unless he was trying to avoid, like, what happened to Zarkon happening to Shiro? But then if he did, where did he teleport him to? And how did the Galra find him? And how did they not recognize that they had the Paladin of the Black Lion? I don't get it. I honestly don't get this episode. And the noodles at the end. They were eating, the two rebels were eating the little buckets of noodles, and then their eyes light up. Were they magic noodles? What were they laced with? Did they come from Team Voltron? Were they really happy that they didn't have a ship anymore to get off the planet? I don't like this episode. I don't like this episode at all. So it's really kind of interesting that we come to the end of Season 3, and I was about ready to say, when I was thinking about Season 3, oh wow, they did a really good job of just like packing a lot of stuff going on. We moved efficiently through a lot of the things that we needed to do. We needed to create the new Team Voltron, and we needed to see these new Paladins working together and coming together and forming Voltron, and we need to see how LOTOR operates, and we need to see the developing, evolving politics inside the galaxy. We see evolving politics in the Galra Empire, and then all of a sudden and I was like, there's no filler at all. And then all of a sudden we get the last episode. And the last episode is filler. You know, the legend begins. And the whole beginning of Voltron just basically comes down to space aliens. Interdimensional evil space aliens. Yeah. I just don't... Oh man, I was like... It was a long ways to come around to Zarkon waking up. It was a long way to come around to having Zarkon wake up. I mean, I guess it's kind of important to see the origin story to a certain extent. I just, you know, King Alfor is like, I'm going to create these super weapons, but I'm not going to know what they all do, and we're going to wait for the lions to tell us what to do. Is that just the peculiarity of the metal? And if it's the most powerful metal with an infinite fuel source, how do you shape it? What technology do you possibly have to make the lions out of it? Ah! It's a bit cumbersome. It's a bit cumbersome to try and get from there to here. And so they just tell the story in classic legend form. You know, we're going to skip the details, and we're just going to get right to the point. And straight to the point is, the Galra Empire turns evil because of interdimensional evil space beings and quintessence. Lots and lots and lots of evil purple quintessence that make us live forever and give us spooky powers. I don't know. You know, it's a filler episode. Oh well. I guess we had to have one, right? I mean, technically we are halfway through what should be a long Season 3. Like, Season 4 is on October 13th, and it's like, I think 6 more episodes. So, you know, maybe this was the right time to have that mid-season plot summary episode that is quite the trope amongst animated series. Anyway, so, it's just, I don't know. It could have been time better spent getting to Zarkon waking up, which I thought was a good reveal for the end of the season. But it would have been nice to have had it be a little more dramatic, like something LOTOR was doing and Hagar was in his way and stuff. You know, I don't know. But, you know, evil interdimensional space aliens. It's always them. So, those are my thoughts on Voltron Legendary Defender Season 3. What did you think of Voltron Season 3? Did you catch on to the dark parallels idea that I felt was prevailing throughout the season? Did anything else bother you, or did you think that they did something particularly well? Feel free to go ahead and put it down in the comments below.
Form Blazing Sword!
And now it's time for Q&A. This is the part of the program where I take your questions and I answer them in the most curry way possible. I've got 3 really good questions this week, and if you want to have me answer one of your questions in a very curry way, feel free to put it in the comments below. Seriously, people, put comments in the comments below. Because all I'm getting are the robots. They're the only ones commenting. Unless you're a robot. Are you a robot? Am I a robot? Voltron's a robot. Alright, so my first question comes from a coworker. Kristen asks, what is one thing I would change to my local public schools? Let's see. How quickly do I want to be fired from my job? No, actually, my thoughts on how I would change my school district, I've said a dozen times, and it comes from a belief in basically just this concept of educational legitimacy. Like, students will go to school in whatever form it looks like, okay? Students will go to school if they feel that their time is being legitimately used and the skills that they're learning are legitimate. As long as you have legitimacy, you will have success in your program, whatever your program is. And that's the reason why we need in our system a much more, I guess what I'm trying to get at is, we need a system whereby which we are genuinely addressing the needs of our students. There are going to be students who walk into a public school who are not going to go on to college to write college essays. Well, what do we have for them? The same thing. The same thing. Everybody walks in and gets the same curriculum. Maybe at different levels for whatever particular class they're in, but everybody just gets the same thing. That's not legitimate for everybody. There are students who are in my building who would gladly come to school every day, if they knew that all they would be asked to do is work down in the auto tech classroom and spend 4 years getting their car certification. If they could walk out of Sprague High School at 18 with a piece of paper that says they can go to work at the local auto shop, they'd come to school every day. Now, our school district does that in only one area. We have this wonderful C-Tech building. And if you're lucky and get accepted, and you're a junior, which means that you went through everybody gets the same thing for 2 years and you got good grades, then you can be rewarded by going to C-Tech for whether it's cosmetology or whether it's home construction or CNC or whatever else, the other program. They got a drone program coming, things like that. But that's just one building. That's not enough. That's what I would change. I think it's a mistake focusing it in one building and saying, see, this is what we're doing right here. One site. That's not making education legitimate for your entire population. You could take my school right now. You could make it a college track school. Maybe 3 of our 6 high schools, or 7 or 8. I don't even know how many high schools we have anymore. Take 3 of our schools. Make them the college track. Everybody goes to one of these 2 schools. And then you figure out what the other high schools are going to be. Now, in my building, we actually could have some college-bound, but with focus. Like, we have a really dope health and medicine program. Like, this could be like the start of pre-med at the high school level. We have a lot of business classes. We have, super, super awesome visual and performing arts. And with the sheer number of lawyers' kids rolling through our building, we could have a pre-law. So we could set up 3 or 4 of these academies that are college track, but they're taking classes that are legitimate for the areas that they're interested in doing. And then, of course, in our building, we also have drafting and 3D printing, and we have automotive. And so, yeah, somebody could still come here their sophomore year, and they take auto classes, lots of them. They take an English class that's more, technical writing. Sorry, I forgot the term technical writing. And they take technical writing and some other things. Make their education legitimate. That's the key. And so that's what I would change. It would require hard work, and it would require a lot of people to rethink what they're doing. There's a lot of, I don't know. I think there's a lot of personal territory that everybody stakes down. This is why I'm a teacher, and I'm here doing this, and this is why I'm a teacher, and this is why I'm doing this. I would have a difficult time giving up like my AP European history classes. But if my boss came to me and said, look, everybody who's going to go into this Voc Tech class needs a public speaking class. So you're going to teach public speaking all the time. I would do it. A, because I love teaching public speaking, so I would feel lucky teaching something that I liked. B, I would recruit a whole bunch more kids to be on my speech and debate team. And C, I genuinely believe those skills that I teach are hyper legitimate. Nobody ever walks out of a public speaking class saying, when am I ever going to use this in real life? Well, I mean, you can say that, but you'd be lying. So, I guess that's my critique. That's my critique of where I work. I just don't think that we have the right system. We only have one nugget of genuine educational legitimacy for non-college bound students. And it's a long road to get there. Asking a kid to get through their freshman and sophomore year before they apply to go to our technical education building, or to have the grades to be able to transfer to another building that's got the program that they're interested in. We have this Academy's Light, and I just don't think it's enough. I know it's not enough. We have a number of students I know who feel trapped in where they are because they don't have the grades, they don't know what's available to them, they don't know what their options are. Our counselors can't counsel them because our counselors are being asked to do everything else. And so our counselors can't sit down with them their freshman year and go, hey, look, what are you interested in? Oh, hey, look, what you want to do is offered over at South, but you live in the Sprague district. But if you do a year's worth of good work here at Sprague and you get good grades, you can get a transfer over to South. But if you don't have the grades, they're not going to make the transfer happen. And so you can coach that freshman into becoming a student so they can get what they want, a legitimate education, at another building. So anyway, it just comes down to legitimacy. I want to see everybody's time spent effectively. My time and my students' time. So, really easy thing to change. We should be able to get it done sometime by the start of September, right? Alright, question number 2, I promise. It won't take 15 minutes. It'll take 15 minutes. Dan asks, what would your platform for president be? Oh man, I can't be president. I cannot be president. My students say, Curry, you should run. It's like, no. So let's pretend, and I did run for president. What would I run it on? I think I could come out and say, like, I have certain fundamental beliefs about about this country. Number one is that this country is the most powerful, wealthiest country on Earth, and that means we can do anything. We put men on the moon. It shouldn't be that hard to give everybody health care. Just single-payer health care. I would audit the Pentagon, which is good across the board to a certain extent, but I would then follow that up with cutting the Pentagon. Everybody else has to trim the fat. The Pentagon would have to trim the fat too, and then everybody would say I was soft on terrorism. So that, kills me there too. I really would work hard to try to realign us as a global player in... I think that we've missed opportunities to form new alliances. I think that we would do ourselves better to form a real alliance with China. I think we would do ourselves a huge service by creating an alliance with Iran. And I know what you're going to say. but there's a whole generation of 30-something-year-olds and 20-something-year-olds who are pro-West and actually like America, and we could bank on that. It's truly unfortunate that we aren't finding ways of working with not only conventional allies, but trying to expand our field. Trying to expand the field that we have good working relationships with. And now it feels like that field that we have is contracting right now. And that's unfortunate. So that's another plank that nobody would agree with. So I wouldn't get elected there either. And finally, I think I would do a lot to as a plank is I just love it. I love the word infrastructure. I want bullet trains. The United States doesn't have a bullet train system. That's like an insult. It's time for the next great American Federal Highway Act. It's time for a little bit of Truman, Eisenhower, the new modern America building. We put into place bullet trains. We put into place highways that cars can autopilot on. We put into place, or hyperloops. That would be cool, right? Hyperloops? That would be cool. Or jetpacks. Maybe it's time for jetpacks and flying cars. That would be cool. But I think an infrastructure plank would be really cool too. And that would cost a lot of money, and all the fiscal hawks would be like, meh. So, yeah. 4 planks that guarantee I would never be elected. Alright, my last question comes from Tate, and Tate asked me what my thoughts are on gamification in education. Gamification actually ties back to my question that I answered earlier on about like educational legitimacy. If gamifying the classroom makes the education legitimate for the students, then I guess I'm all for it. I've done just enough reading to be dangerous about the subject, and not enough reading to be knowledgeable beyond a shadow of a doubt on the subject. I've seen gamification at play. I have used gamification in the classroom, but I don't rely on it, and I know that the other teachers who have gamified parts to their curriculum don't rely on it either. It's just a part of the larger curriculum at work. So what are my thoughts on making like the whole thing gamification? You would think that I would love it, because you know me. I have a whole bunch of Star Wars role-play books behind me. If you know me, you know I play Dungeons and Dragons and online role-play games, and I've played various other role-play games, and so gamifying the curriculum would be something that you would say like, Curry, that's totally you. You would totally do that. I'm always asking myself, what is it that I am trying to do to convince my students to feel like their education is legitimate? And so I guess my fear is gamification in the classroom shifts learning from one incentive to another incentive. But it doesn't move the focus of learning from extrinsic motivation to intrinsic motivation. People will learn best when they are excited to learn that. So think back to my answer a couple questions ago. Students will come to school if they know that they're going to be doing what they are, if they're going to be learning the skills that they're going to use for the rest of their lives. They're going to go to school. They just are. Oh, you mean that you're going to teach me how to wire a house? I'm definitely going to go to school because I don't want to miss how to wire the house. If you're in that like wiring, electrical, housing construction academy, you're going to go to school because you know that's going to be useful for you down the road. That didn't require gamification. It didn't require badges, candy bars, special titles, or anything like that. All it requires is for a school, an administration, a district to really, truly, genuinely ask themselves, what is it that we need to do to make 90% of our students want to come into our buildings every day. As opposed to maybe 50%, 30% who genuinely every day want to walk into the building. What do we have to do? How do we have to change the mold? Gamification, I'm sorry, but I'm not about fun. I'm about making learning fun. Yeah, there's a lot of fun that we do in class, and sometimes I go off on a non-school related tangent, and sometimes what we do in class is genuinely fun. That's partly because I think there's a lot of fun to be had in learning. But I don't think that the learning should be for the sake of fun. So I don't think that gamification is something that I would do on any kind of regular basis. Because it's not intrinsic learning. Kids are interested, and they'll learn if they're interested. But they're going to leave, and they're going to go to their other games. And they're going to continue to be in this gaming mindset. Instead of in a, I want to learn more about the world around me mindset. More interested in getting more badges. More interested in leveling up. I don't think you have to gamify the classroom if you've asked your students, what do they need to know? And then making certain that they know that those skills are available to learn in the building. I think we all have to sit down and have that conversation. What is it that we have to do to make students want to come into the building? And I guess if everybody says, let's just make a big game out of it, I mean, then that's what you do. Or you can say, let's make certain that we offer the programs that are going to be beneficial for our kids when they leave. Let's accept the fact that not everybody's going to go off to college and give them an education that's going to help them when they're 18 out in the real world. I don't know if gamification can help a kid who's trying to go out and, again, get a job as a plumber, get a job as an electrician, get a job as a home builder. I don't know how LARPing, solving some dungeon riddle, is going to help. I think that at the end of the day, I don't have, if you gamify in your classroom, great. Why am I not gamifying in my classroom? Because I'm working very hard with my students to try and figure out how I can have them walk out of my classroom not only smarter about what it is I'm teaching them, but giving them a fire that can only be satisfied by just learning more stuff. Creating a desire for intrinsic learning to continue to work the brain muscle, to continue to make your just to make your life just more enriched by having more data at your command when it's time to make those really tough decisions. Yeah. Good questions. Love all of them this week. If you want your question answered in a very curry way, put the questions in the comments below. I'll read them, I promise. I may answer them too. Alright, that's it for this edition of the Sunday Show, coming to you one day late because. Anyway, preview for next week's Sunday Show. This up-and-coming Saturday is Pan War 2 up in Centralia, Washington. It's the nifty Pacific Northwest Nerf War. We're trying to make it bigger and better. And I'm going to be up there on Saturday, which means for the Sunday Show, I'm going to be talking about how Pan War went, a little bit of footage of some of the wacky goodness. I also had an opportunity to watch Season 1 of Castlevania, and I kind of want to talk about it a little bit too, because, you know, vampires. And, of course, as always, I'll answer your questions in the Q&A. Make certain that you get those questions into me in the comments below. And, as always, may Yoda rise your X-Wing up to meet you. May the dark side be always at your back. May your saber shine warm upon your face. And the Imperial Walkers fall soft upon your battlefields. And until we meet again, may the Force be with you always.
Will Voltron finally defeat Lotor and the planet Doom? Don't miss the next exciting episode of Voltron, Defender of the Universe.